Hello, everybody. This is Jeremiah Craig coming at you for another edition of Ask the Bootmaker. Today, we have Jarrett Van Curen here from Pittsburgh, Texas. I'm going to bring him in and we're going to get this thing kicked off. So let's do it. Hey, Jarrett, how's it going?
Oh, it's good, Jeremiah. How are you?
I'm doing spectacular. Thank you so much for joining me today on
Yeah.
the Ask the Bootmaker. This is always a fun thing to do, to talk to custom bootmakers all across the nation. And you are in the home state of the Cowboy boot, where so many custom bootmakers are based in Texas. Can you give me a little bit of origin story? Like, how did you get into bootmaking?
Jeremiah, it's kind of funny. I'm not really from Texas. I was born in California, born in Bakersfield, California, of all places, which is a pretty country area. But I moved here when I was a kid. I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I moved to Texas, and when you move to Texas, you become a cowboy whether you want to or not, and life went on, and by the time I made it into high school, I kind of realized I needed to work. I needed some money, so I started working for a ranch here in town, and realized that life wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. Worked when it was cold. I worked when it was hot. It didn't matter what it was like outside. If it was raining or snowing, I still had to work. And I had a buddy of mine that used to work for Glenn's Western Wear that told me that they were looking for somebody to come in and help. So I was, 16 years old, and decided to go there and see if I could get a job where I thought I was going to sell clothes, sell boots, shape hats, kind of do like the normal Western wear stuff. And I probably did for about the first hour of work that first day. But then my boss came to me and said, Jarrett, I need you to come to the back, and I need you to start saddle soaping boots. I was like, okay, I don't know what in the world you're talking about, but I'm all for it. Little did I know that Don, which was Glenn's son, he had a shoe repair business that his dad had started after he came back from World War II. And that shoe repair business is still in business today. And I started doing shoe repair. That's how I started, and kind of got my hands wet. I wasn't making boots. I wasn't doing any leather work. It was just fixing cowboy boots. That's all I did every day. So I got a lot of hours on finishing equipment and sole stitchers, and kind of your basic equipment that I use now. Yeah, I mean that's
So they
kind of
just
where.
sort of threw you into it?
Yeah, so he just threw me in, said, "Here you go." And kind of started at the basic things and kind of worked my way up until I got to where I was doing everything. Now, past that, right before college, I figured I might try out some tooling, and so I started tooling belts and wallets and stuff like that, and kind of turned into a side hustle that really it paid for my college. I went to A&M Commerce for 4 years, and man, my leather work paid for every penny of the college that I paid for. So that was a really fun deal. But my senior year of college, so I was, oh gosh, 20 21 or 22 years old. No, I was 21 years old when I was a senior. I decided I was going to try and make a pair of boots, and no experience making anything. I mean, worked on a bunch, but I never thought about building them until then. And I got my hands on a book from D.W. Frommer, which is another bootmaker. He's not in Texas. He's kind of the unnormal bootmaker, but his book is very detail oriented. Had everything I needed to get that first pair built, and so I guess in 2013 I built my first pair of boots.
How was
And
that first pair?
they fit.
Yeah.
um, they weren't pretty. They weren't beautiful. They're not near as nice as the things I make now. But I was tickled to death because I had a pair of boots that fit my foot for the first time of my life. Because I've got a long skinny foot, and boot companies just don't make boots for people like me anymore. So
I hear you.
that
Yeah, I got
me.
the narrow size too. What would your size be if you decided to get a factory boot for some reason?
Um, I could fit in an 11B, but
Hmm.
it would still be loose in the waist, and not as tight as it needs to be for me to be happy.
Yep, I hear you. I'm a 12B, and I have to cheat all the time with 11Ds or 10 and a half Ds, depending on the toe shape. And
Yeah.
it's a pain in the ass. So I can't wait until I can do custom boots like we were talking about just before we started here.
Yeah.
Um, I want to remind everybody that you can ask Jarrett a question if you have any in the live chat. We got about 14 people in here right now. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you all. Here's a question that I have from Leon. What is your favorite toe shape when you're making boots?
Truthfully, my favorite is it's called a box toe. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will call it square toe, but it's not like a traditional square. Well, I shouldn't say traditional. That's the wrong term. It's not like the factory square toes that you see nowadays. It's got a nice undercut to it. Looks square from the top, but it's boxy. If you'll give me a second, I'll pull my boot off and I'll show you which toe it is, so you know.
Yeah.
So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, you've seen this pair. This is my personal pair I built last year. This is a pair that
Awesome.
I won the top stitch class with. But this is let's see if I can get that in the right spot. That is the box toe.
Mm-hmm.
And see, it's got a nice undercut to it, but it's still square if you look down on it. And that's just an inch wide box toe. It's real traditional. A lot of 1930s, 1940s boots kind of rock that toe style.
I love that toe style. And it seems like the only folks that make it are custom boot makers. Is there a reason why factory made boots don't do that at all?
Yes. So 30 years ago, boot companies started getting into machine lasting. And so it was the time that we needed to figure out how to make boots and keep the prices down. And the way you keep prices down is by getting rid of the people that you pay and replacing them with equipment that does the same job. So a machine lasts them now and pulls everything in tight. And you can't last that kind of toe on a machine. It has to be hand lasted in. So it's an expensive process for a factory to make them. If you got a pair of the handmade Lucchese's, they might do that toe box now, but even then, I think they try to stay away from it because it's harder to do. It's a lot harder to
Mm-hmm.
pull in, look good.
It's a good looking toe shape for real. And it comes in different widths, right? You said that one was a 1 inch box toe. What
Yeah.
are some other widths that you usually work with for box toes?
Well, I've got another pair that I lasted yesterday, and I got the toe boxes in today. In this pair, they don't have a welt on them yet, so they're not the prettiest looking thing. And they've still got a strip around the bottom where I wiped the toe in. But this box toe is 1.75 inches wide. It still has the same
Mm-hmm.
look side, but from the front and from the top down, you can see how much wider it is. I mean, you can do any size you want. You can do a 1/2 inch all the way up to a 2 inch box toe. It's just whatever the customer wants.
Wow. A half-inch one has got to be kind of pointy and
It's
uh,
it's it's getting into like a ladies boot kind of look. It's getting pretty
mm-hmm.
narrow, and I think I have another pair sitting up there. I'll go grab really quick. I think they've got a 3/4 inch box toe on them.
Sounds good. We'd love to see it. Hey, everybody in the live chat. Thank you for joining me with Jarrett Van Curen today. Oh, look at these here. Whoa.
No, I lied. These are 7/8 7/8 box toe, so it's not extremely narrow, but it's still more narrow than what I wear on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. That's a good look.
Yeah, so that's just a nice black boot, nothing crazy.
Wow. Wow. Now,
That's just a sample boot that sits in my shop all day, so people get to look at when they come in.
you must sell so many boots when you show that to people.
I've had a bunch of boots that people order that are pretty identical to that one, just because of how classic of a look it is.
It looks great. And you have a similar stitch pattern on that one as you did on the boots that you're wearing and the other boots that you showed me before we went live. Can you
Yeah.
tell me about that stitch pattern?
Which one? This
The
black
one
pair?
that
The black pair is a little bit different than the
Oh
other.
yeah, okay, I see the difference now.
Get it in view here. It's a
Oh
little bit
wow.
different than the others. And I actually haven't done this pattern in a while, just because it's a little more. It's got some aspects I don't like. I don't like the void in this area, and I hadn't figured out how
Mm-hmm.
to get something in there that I like. Other than that, man, it's got a really neat appearance and kind of works from the inside out versus my other stitch pattern, which works from the side seam and kind of works its way into the center.
That's a good looking stitch pattern. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's your stitch pattern that you sort of changed a little bit from somebody else? Like
Yeah.
what's the history behind that?
Well, you don't really have a whole lot of space to work on tops on boots for top stitching. Um, and a lot of times, a lot of people stitch patterns end up looking really close to the same because there's certain things that just look good. And I've got certain people that I really admire their work, and one of them is Mike Vaughn. He's a very talented bootmaker. It's helped me a ton throughout the years, and that's actually similar to his stitch pattern that he uses quite often, except I changed it to get a different appearance to it, so it's not identical to his, but it's got a lot of the same appearance to it as his.
It's a great look. It's a great look for sure.
Oh,
We got some questions talking about factory made boots since we sort of touched on that a little bit
yeah.
earlier. I'm going to start with Enrique's question. What are your thoughts on factory made boots in general?
do you want my truthful answer on that?
Of course, that's why we're here.
All right. So, like I told you before, I did a lot of repair work through high school and all through college, and I got to see boots from the 70s, boots from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and newer. And from about 1990 to now, almost all factory boots are throwaway items. I hate to say that, and if one of those guys that runs those companies saw this video, I'd tell them straight to their face, they're throwaway items. They're not made the way that my boots are. They're not made the way the boot factories used to make them the way that I make them about 50 years ago, but they've changed everything in order to bring their costs down, and they're not the same. They've got paper insoles, paper heel counters. A lot of times the heel blocks or some sort of compressed paper instead of leather. They really killed quality throughout the years in order to keep the boots affordable.
Yep. They have started to cut more corners for sure. Even today, they're still finding ways to cut corners. Got a question from Carol Burgess about factory made boots as well. And she asks, why do you think so many boot companies are not making many women's boots in the same styles that they're making for men? So like a lot of women, even my wife has this question. Why do so many women's boots have to have pink stitching and rhinestones all the time? Why can't there just be a normal brown woman's boot?
I really don't know. I wish I could answer that question. I don't know. I don't know why they do that. That's just that's their choices they make, and that's all the better reason to come see a custom bootmaker to get what you want.
It's just about to say that for sure. All the more reason to go custom. Reamer here asks, how much time on average will it take for you to make a pair of boots? Just the hours working on it.
It's funny. I was actually talking to one of my other boot buddies this morning about that topic. And, it's everybody will tell you it takes them 40 hours to make a pair of boots. I don't know if it's really 40 hours or not. Truthfully, I've probably finished boots in 30 hours, and I've probably had some that take me 60 hours because there's a lot of variance. There's some boots that I only put one row of top stitching on. There's some that I do 7 on. Just the top stitching alone could take me an hour, or it could take me 10 hours. So there's too many variables to say that it takes me 40 hours to make a pair. So I don't know. I can't answer that question for you. Not accurate.
Depends on what somebody wants.
That's exactly right.
Got a question from Lone Star Boot Reviews here, asking about how you would make a pair of boots differently for different the right foot compared to the left foot. He asks, would you be able to accommodate a left foot with a high instep and a right foot with a low instep and a collapsed arch, making it wide and flat? What is the difference? But have you worked on making different fits for the left and right foot?
Oh yeah. That's one of the main reasons most people come to see me is because they can't buy a factory boot that fits correctly. They have 2 different sizes. They'll come in with a really high arch, or they'll come in with a low arch with that's collapsed. I mean, there's so many things that people's feet do throughout the years that prohibit them from getting in a good pair of boots. So when I build a pair of boots, let me see if I can grab. I don't have anything sitting around. Here's a last. So this is a last. This is what I build a pair of boots on, and this is how I make everything fit for that customer, whoever the client may be. And so what I do is when I have a customer come in, I'll get numerous measurements from each foot. I'll get tracings, I'll get foot placement, I'll get actual foot contact to the floor, and then I'll get a ball measurement, a straight ball measurement, a waist measurement, low instep, high instep, cuboid measurement, short heel, long heel, and that's just one foot. So I do your left, I do your right, and then I make a left last that matches your left foot and a right last that matches your right. That way that both your boots feel identical. Even if you have 2 completely different feet.
Such a good value for going custom. Such a great value. I got a question about we got a couple of questions here. I think I'll keep going with the questions here from folks in the live chat. We got lots of questions, actually. One from Russell Garcia. Have you ever taken an apprentice? Because He's a woodworker and kind of interested in apprenticing for bootmaking.
I might take one on if I wasn't teaching. I'm still an ag teacher. So I work 60, 70-hour weeks most of the time. And my bootmaking is still, I hate to call it a hobby because it's not really a hobby anymore. I'm so busy. But it's not my full-time job right now. So I really can't take an apprentice on until I hang up one of my hats.
Wow. So where do you teach?
I actually teach in Big Sandy, Texas, which is it's about 30 minutes from my house. It's a small school. We've got about 180 high school students total, and I'm an agriculture teacher there. So I actually focus in the welding trades more than anything. So during the day, I'm teaching welding trades, and first thing in the morning, I'm working on boots.
Wow. So how do you find time? First thing in the morning, and plus you have a family. So first thing in the morning, what does that mean? When are you waking up and making these boots?
People look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them what time I get up in the morning. But usually I get up anywhere from 3 to 3:30 in the morning, and I'll usually work till about 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and squeeze in 3 hours every day. And then on my weekends, I still get up at 3 or 3:30 Saturday and Sunday mornings, but I get to get a good 6 hour day in before all my family is really up and about. And then those days are usually my family days, so I only work in the mornings.
That's hustle right there. Wow. Respect.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's incredible. So I always like to ask bootmakers about some of the things that they learn from bootmaking and take into other careers and bringing that information and wisdom into the bootmaking. Have you been able to bring any bootmaking wisdom into your teaching career, or maybe you're teaching anything that you've learned in your teaching career into bootmaking?
I really, gosh, I don't know. If anything, I would say that my personality from teaching, because when you teach, you've got to learn how to speak to everyone on a certain level in order to get through to their minds, and be intellectual when you need to be, and be playful when you're supposed to be, and all that sort of stuff. But I think I got a lot of that when I was selling cowboy boots at that Western store too. So I don't know how I could really answer that question. If I went off of another career that added to this, it's got to be the repair shop. Truthfully, I think anyone that wants to build boots full time or wants to build cowboy boots probably needs to go work in a repair shop for a couple of years. That way they can practice on less expensive boots and do a lot of quantity on that machinery.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it just seems like the natural progression of things to see the insides, how they're built on the factory level, and then go from there. It just makes sense. Let's come back into the live chat and do another question here. Let's do an easy one here. Carol asks, what are your boot prices? What's the starting price for a basic pair of boots? Are you comfortable sharing that? Because I know with the economy, they might change on a regular basis.
No, I don't mind at all. I've got it. It's actually posted on my website for everyone to see. It kind of cuts down on my phone calls for people that think I sell a $200 boot. My base boot starts at $1,700. So that includes the consultation. That's, you coming in and getting fitted for a pair. That includes the cost of the last, that includes the fitting of the last. And then, your base boot is generally going to be a pig vamp, with a kid skin top. Nothing crazy, nothing exotic, just a good, working cowboy style of boot.
Mm-hmm. And does that come with any rows of top stitching too?
Oh no, that's one row of top
Just
stitching.
plain.
Yes. get one row. If you want to do additional, I charge $65 a row, as many as you want to do.
Awesome. It's very reasonable for sure. And what do you consider your biggest strength in bootmaking? Why would somebody come to you over somebody else because of like one thing that you do better than everybody else?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I don't know why, truthfully. I've just been fortunate throughout the years to pick up clients here and there. I've had some fly in to come see me. This last pair that the pair that I'm working on right now, the guy, he told me truthfully, he said, Jarrett, I called a ton of bootmakers. I looked at a ton of bootmakers profiles. And the reason I came to you is because you have a website. I mean, it's simple things like that. That was the winner for him. I've had other people come to me because of the fact that they had a buddy that got a pair of boots made by me, and they knew how well they fit, and they came to see me for the exact same thing. So a lot of bootmaking is still it's still word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. But websites add so much credibility. That's such an interesting thing to bring up because my dad talks about that all the time with his fabrication company, is that the fact that he has a website is why people choose him over other fabrication companies, even though they might be in Florida and they're working with him in New York State. So it's like the website can mean so much. Did you think that a website would make that much of a difference when you started?
No, not really. Because I sold a lot of leather work throughout the years, but the website was kind of one of those things I needed somewhere else besides Instagram and Facebook to promote, and to where I could keep all my photos of all my work. And a website seemed logical. I mean, a lot of times that I'm looking to go buy something, I expect a company to have a website that tells me what they do. And
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, then I better have a best friend tell me they're the best thing in the world. That's the only way I'd go without.
No doubt. No doubt. I love it. I got a question here from James Stewart in the live chat. What is your preference, leather outsole or a rubber outsole? Have you made one of each?
Yeah, I've made them either way. It depends. I hate to say the word depends. It makes me think of an old person. But you know, um, everyday boots that I wear, I put a leather sole on, just because it's traditional. They feel the best. They break in quicker,
Mm-hmm.
and they look good. But if I've got somebody that is going to wear a boot daily, and they're on concrete daily, and they're going to wear the snot out of them, I mean, you got to wear the snot out of them. I'll put a rubber sole on, but I always tell those folks that get it, the boot's going to be really stiff for a really long time, and it's going to be really hard to break in. But once it does, they're going to wear for a long time in comparison to leather. So it just comes down to personal preference on that.
Right. And what you're doing. I swear I answer most of the questions, not all of them, but whenever I get questions coming through on my YouTube channel and people are asking me which is better, and it depends. It depends on what you're doing with the boots for sure, every single day. What are some of your favorite leathers to use when you're making boots?
Um, I don't know. I can't really say that I have a favorite. They all kind of have their own purpose. My working cowboy guys, they get the pigskin boots. They're tough, they're cheap, and they look good. I mean, for what they are, they look pretty decent. It's not the most fun thing for me to work with. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
harder to stretch and crimp and pull over the lasts. But they end up doing well. If I had to say I had a favorite though, elephant's pretty high up there. Elephant always falls on a boot for me, like it wants to be a pair of cowboy boots. It's easy to work with. It looks good. If people see you with a pair of elephants on, they know that you've spent some money. They know that they're cool. They look cool. You just can't beat the way elephant is. So
It's
if I
tough
had
too.
to, yeah, they're tough. So I'd probably put that one pretty high up there.
Love it. I don't have a pair of elephant boots yet. My wife does. I'm looking forward to getting a pair someday, and I would love that pair to be custom for sure.
Yeah.
Now, do you do anything different from other boot makers, whether it's in the leather that you use or a process that you implement into boot making?
Not really. So many of these things that we do on these boots are so traditional. Um, there's not a whole lot to change. There's not a whole lot of suppliers that we can buy from, so a lot of us use a lot of the same material. But we all kind of find our preferences. I have certain preferences for the lining leather I use. I have a certain preference for who I buy my ostrich from. I find certain suppliers that sell certain things that are really nice in comparison to others, and really overall, I think all bootmakers do the exact same thing, but we all have just our personal style, our personal flair that makes our boot look like our boot.
No doubt. And that's why it's so interesting talking with so many different bootmakers is what is that like little bit of personality that they put into their boots. And it might take a minute after talking or looking at their boots, but it's always there. It's always. Do you have a special signature thing, maybe in the tongue or in the stitching that you do?
Yeah. So let's see if I can get oh yeah, that's a good shot of it. All right. So this is this stitch down this side here. This is that's called a fender stitch. And that's
Fender, like the guitar?
Yeah, like the guitar. So it's called a fender stitch. And that is my style. I've never seen it on anyone else's boot. And every single pair that I make has that stitch down the side. My tongue pattern is nothing special. It's not crazy looking. The back counter is not crazy looking. So you can't, for me, those things aren't going to tell you that they're a pair of my boots. Now the top stitching, once again, that's another one of those items. If you see it, a lot of times that top stitching will tell you who made the boot as well, because a lot of guys will use the same pattern over and over again. Mm-hmm. But if I grab another pair, I've got another pair sitting over here, and you can see that same fender stitch on that boot, same tongue style, same heel counter style. It's all the same little things every single time. So I don't know. That's probably about the only thing on mine that's any different than most other people's.
I love it. It's like a signature at the bottom of a painting or something.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I noticed that other pair that you just showed, those tan ones with the wider box toe, that doesn't have a toe bug on it.
No.
That's something that I've been sort of looking into a little bit more recently. Can you tell me like the advantages and disadvantages of having a toe bug on a cowboy boot or even a custom pair in particular?
Yeah. So the entire purpose of it, we call it a bug and wrinkle. The entire purpose of the bug and wrinkle is to make that boot break in that perfect zone from ball to ball. That way you don't get wrinkles across the top of your boots. That's the theory of it anyways. And so you can see on this pair, I think, if I can get some decent lighting here.
Yeah, I can see it pretty okay.
So up here, up top, you find something to point with. These up top this is called the wrinkle. And so ideally you want this to go across where your foot breaks whenever you walk. And then you have your bug I'm telling you, I'm hoping y'all can see this. The
Oh, we
bug
can see it.
is the decoration across the front. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
their decoration more than anything, just to kind of break it up and make them look nice. But that's personal preference. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times on exotic boots, so like this pair of ostrich that I'm doing right now, most people don't get it on exotics because it's hard to do. It's hard to see. Stitching over quills on full quill just doesn't work properly. But at the exact same time, I've got smooth boots like this pair. The man doesn't like toe bug and wrinkles. He's got numerous pairs from me, and he's never had a bug and wrinkle on his boots. He just likes them plain smooth. Doesn't want anything down there on the bottom of his foot. So it's just personal preference on whether you want it or not.
I love it. And I think it looks good either way, depending, but I like the function of it. Sometimes when it's in the right place on a boot, you just know. Like, and it just feels good and helps that boot bend a little
Yep.
bit more
Yep.
naturally, I feel like. But
Yeah.
when it's in the wrong spot with a couple, like there's some factory boots that I've tried that where that wrinkle is in the wrong spot and it hurts. It's a pain,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
if they use really bad leather.
Yeah.
That's a hint to what's going down on the channel on Tuesday, everybody. Just so you
Okay.
know, because I definitely experienced that recently. Have you ever entered any of your boots into competitions? I thought I heard you mention those blue ones that you have.
Yeah.
You won an award for that?
Yes. So there is an annual bootmaker that we call it a roundup, which is basically it's a trade show. So we have all our suppliers show up. All the bootmakers usually show up, and there's usually a boot contest as well as saddles. And they have different categories set up for whatever you want to enter. So last year I entered the top stitch class, which is how well your top stitching is. And I also entered the working cowboy boot class, and I won both of them last year. So
Nice. Congrats.
thank you. I don't have the working cowboy boot class boot with me. They actually belong to another bootmaker. I built a pair for Tim Bishop. He lives in Arizona, and so he's wearing those things as we speak. But I do have the top stitch winner because I usually do the top stitch boots for me or one of my family members. That way, I don't have to rush them. That way, I can take my time and make sure they look good. So this is the pair that I won the top stitching class with this year.
That looks so good.
Y'all can see that.
Wow.
Yep.
How many rows are there?
There's 7 rows in there.
Nice.
Yeah. And then let's see. So that was last year. Year before last, I won the top stitching class again. Year before that, I won the journeyman class, which is that's for your new and beginning bootmakers. You had to make 15 pair or less. So I entered pair number 13 and won that year, and that kind of kicked off my bootmaking career whenever I did that, because that's when I really started building boots for people.
Wow. So would you say that top stitching is your biggest strength with making cowboy boots, since that seems to be where all your awards are?
If I had to say so, it probably is. That's I've got a couple of other guys that they get upset when I show up to the show because they know I'm going to put a pair down on the table. And I've had a few of them last year. They told me they're coming for me this year. So I've really got to step out and do something a little bit better to make sure that hope they don't win and beat me out. But if they do, they deserve it.
Nothing wrong with a little healthy competition.
Yeah,
That keeps everybody top of their game.
definitely.
Love it. Speaking of meeting all these custom bootmakers and having a little bit of healthy competition, Are there any custom boot makers that you look up to in or have helped you in the past?
Yeah. So I've already mentioned them once. Mike Vaughn has been an extremely influential bootmaker to me. I probably talk to Mike at least once a week, if not more. He probably gets tired of hearing from me. 'Cause, man, I'm telling you, there's some trades people won't tell you anything. There's some trades they'll tell you everything. Mike has always told me everything. He's never held anything back from me. Has really helped me out as a bootmaker. He's been wonderful. Another one would be Brian Thomas. And he's a good old boy. He's retired Air Force. If I hopefully I didn't get that wrong. I hope he doesn't watch this and tell me I was wrong. Um, but Brian makes a wonderful boot, and he's one of those guys that I've really tried to style some of my stuff off of to make my boots look more like his, because he's got certain aspects that I really enjoy, that are really nice. Tex Robbins, another good one. His grandson, Justin Walker's another good one. I mean, there's tons and tons of guys that I've really looked up to throughout the years that make some wonderful boots.
Wow, yeah. And I love
And
the fact that was that?
if you're watching this and you're one of the guys I talk to all the time, and I didn't mention your name, I'm sorry. There's too many to list. I'm telling you, there's a ton of guys out there that I really look up to.
It's so cool. Every time I talk to custom bootmakers, they seem to just enjoy the community so much with other bootmakers. It seems like a very welcoming and helpful community to be a part of, and you don't hear that very often in other industries. It seems like other industries are just cutthroat. You know, if you're the competition, then you're the competition, and I'm out here to beat you 100% until you go out of business.
Yeah. And 50 years ago, I think bootmaking was that way. But it's changed because of the fact that there's no one new coming into building boots. And so the older guys, the older generation, anytime they see anyone new come in, they're welcoming, want to help them out as much as possible. They want to make sure that the craft lives on. It's a cool deal. When we go to Wichita Falls every year for that bootmaker show. There's so many bootmakers that show up, and it's the neatest thing because we all go to the back of the room and we all sit in chairs and sit and talk like we're family, that hadn't seen each other in a year. We sit and talk for 2 days straight, and it's a wonderful deal.
That's so cool. I love it. I love it. Um, we can wrap up here because I want to respect your time a little bit, but I got a couple more questions here for you.
You're fine.
One being, would you ever consider going full time? I remember you saying earlier on in this conversation that you're mainly a teacher, you build boots early in the morning. Would you consider doing this full time eventually?
Yeah, it's actually my goal. I'm hoping within the next year or 2 years. God, if my principal or my admin's watching this, they're going to have a heart attack. I'm hoping in the next year that I can quit teaching and build boots full time. I enjoy my freedom. I don't have freedom when I teach. If I'm sitting here building boots all day, every day, even if I make less money, I really don't care. This is what I love to do. I'm young enough that I could do it, and I could do it for a long time.
What has to happen in order for you to make that jump? Is it just you need more orders, more recognition out in the marketplace? What do you think is that next step?
It's always business. I got to have enough folks to where when I quit teaching, I have enough to keep me busy.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, like I'm 10 months out right now, and that's building like one pair a month. I'd like to have a year and a half to 2 years backlog, by the time that I quit. That way I know that I've got enough work to keep me busy for at least a year.
Does that ever turn off new customers that they might have to wait a year or two for their boots? Or is that pretty much an expected thing in the custom boot world?
It's pretty well expected. You know, if you
Yeah.
go into a bootmaker shop and they say they can build you a pair of boots in 4 weeks, then um, apparently they're not very good because they're not staying busy. So most of your really good boot builders are going to be anywhere from 2 to 5 years out on building you a pair of boots. So if you came and got fitted today, it could be 2023 or 24 until you get a pair of boots.
Yep.
So that's just kind of expected.
No doubt. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you guys, if you're going to stay busy and do it full time, then that's what you need for sure.
Yeah.
I got a question from Carol, which might be a good one for us to end on.
Okay.
What are the most expensive pair of boots you've made for somebody? You don't have to say what they cost the person who bought them, but she specifically wants to know what types of hides and the stitch pattern or the inlay, the toe shape. What is the most expensive pair that you've ever made?
I'm actually working on a pair right now that are pretty costly. It's a pair of full quill ostrich boots with a black smooth ostrich top, with 5 rows of top stitching. So, on my price range, it's kind of middle of the range on my boot price range. I hadn't had anyone bite on my saltwater crocodile boots yet. But this guy that's got this pair of ostrich that I'm finishing up right now, he last time he come to see me, he said his next pair is going to be a pair of saltwater crocodiles, and if that's the case, man, that's a $10,000 pair of boots. So,
Wow.
I mean, you
Both
can,
the foot and the top?
yeah, that's the foot and the top. Yeah.
Nice.
You can spend a bunch of money if you've got money, you can spend it. I'll help you. I'll help you spend it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Jarrett, thank you so much for this time. I'm wondering if you could sort of give us your website, your Instagram, and maybe something to leave us all with before we close things out here.
Yeah. If you want to see my work, I've got a website. It's vancurenleather.com. I think on Instagram, I'm pretty sure I'm Van Curen Leather on Instagram. If you want to look me up on Facebook, I have some customers, that's all they've got. If you look me up on there as Jarrett Van Curen, you can find me. Those are really the only social media avenues that I've got, but I keep them updated often. You want to get a pair of boots, call me and we'll get you set up and get you lined out for an appointment and see what we can do.
I love it. Links are in the description of this video as well. If you didn't want to type it in, you could just go in the description and click on those links too and make it easy on you. Jarrett, thank you so much for taking this time with me today for this. This has been a lot of fun. And thank you, everybody who came in and joined us, asked the questions. You guys are the best. I hope you have a spectacular day.
Thanks.
Peace, everybody.